How's it going, Alex?
Good. And yourself?
Oh, just trying to stay warm. I'm out here in Washington, D.C., so we're bracing
Oh,
ourselves
yeah.
for a blizzard.
Right? And you're
Yeah.
like supposed to have power outages and internet
That's
outages.
that's what they're saying. Hopefully it's not too bad because that
And
was
it's a perfect
going to
week
be
to have a virtual online summit that
absolutely,
requires internet and like cool backgrounds.
absolutely pleasure to
Well,
be
thank you.
here.
Good. Well, we're so glad to have you. And I also know you are on East Coast time, so it's like 8:30 at
It
night
is. It is
there.
indeed 8:30, but it's perfectly fine. This is great. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Great. So to start off, can you give us a little bit of your background and kind of introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, I was born in Ohio. I'm uh, a Midwest resident. Actually, I went to Wittenberg University. I studied business management. After I graduated from Wittenberg, I actually moved out to New Jersey to start my career at an investment bank, and so I was doing a lot of wealth management
Oh, interesting.
for different clients. I did that for about 2.5 years, and decided I had enough of the finance sector at the time, and um, so I had this background in finance, working 2.5, 3 years at an investment bank, and then I decided that I wanted to switch gears and do more public facing work and more mission oriented work. So I stumbled upon a program called Coro, which is a program in public affairs. It's a fellowship program. So really, Coro was sort of my first foray into public service, and then so I did that for about 9 months. Um,
Wow, that was actually a committed kind of time
absolutely,
frame.
absolutely. So I feel like I've done a lot of national service programs, but it all started off with Coro. I did that for 9 months. Then I decided that I wanted to pursue my master's in public policy, and so I went to Carnegie Mellon to do that. And then afterwards, I joined AmeriCorps after well, it was sort of while I was doing grad school. But hey, how you doing? Okay, sorry, I'm getting used to blab here. So yeah, I did AmeriCorps and I did that for a year.
Are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay, cool. So it looks like your internet is not super hot tonight. I can still hear you. If you're in and you're watching, can you let me know if you can still hear Raymar? So we might just go forward with audio. All right, we can still hear you.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I believe we're to the point that, you'd
AmeriCorps.
gone to Carnegie Mellon.
Yep,
Now you're looking into AmeriCorps.
absolutely. So I started AmeriCorps. So I started AmeriCorps at Pittsburgh Cares, which is a volunteer matching organization, and it was really through this service year at Pittsburgh Cares where I got an opportunity to see firsthand the type of work that I wanted to do as a social entrepreneur. And so through Pittsburgh Cares is actually where I was able to partner with the organization and actually launch my first sponsor change, my social venture.
Cool. Well,
That's such an abbreviated path, but
yeah,
you know,
you had school, you had career, you had some volunteering, you went to get a master's and then a more AmeriCorps. You have led a very, very diverse path
oh, and
to
and
get
I
you
didn't
where you're
even
today.
and I didn't even mention as an intern in grad school over the summer, I worked at the Corporation for National and Community Service, so CNCS
Wow.
in
So
DC.
you went
That
from the world of finance to pretty much every step of the way in service.
absolutely, yep,
Well,
absolutely,
I think that's important because sponsor change is really about bringing back service.
totally.
Um, One of the things I was watching on you, you talked about how there's this really declining rate of service. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in this space?
Sure, yeah. So if you look at a lot of the data, um, when you look at volunteer rates at different cohorts, you do see a drop off between college students and actually when they graduate. And so, you see a lot of activity in terms of civic engagement and volunteering on college campuses. But then after, these students graduate, their volunteer rates tend to drop off.
You get full-time jobs, you're struggling.
Sure.
This whole adulting thing, which quite frankly is just not much fun.
Exactly. And so the idea is that there's this critical sort of decision point that happens. It generally happens like in your last year of undergrad. So as a senior, you may have kids who are, who want to work in the service sector. So they want to work at a nonprofit. Generally what happens is there's this decision, this calculus that happens. And this is what I feel. Students are presented with different opportunities in terms of, where they can work. They sort of consider their ability to be able to pay back student loans. They consider, how many opportunities are actually in the social sector and in the areas that they're really passionate about. So I think there's sort of this push-pull that happens where there is, more private sector jobs than there are, social sector jobs. That's just
and they have a little bit better salary. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, and that's really just the reality. And so I actually went through that same sort of calculus. I was thinking, okay, well, I really want to do something in the social sector, but I have student loans that I have to pay back. I applied to some nonprofit organizations, but there really wasn't a lot of opportunities for full-time, for full-time jobs in the social sector in the area that I was looking at.
So important. Because actually, when I moved to San Diego, I was placed into a part-time role at a nonprofit.
Sure.
And it was always a struggle of funding. And so rather than working on capacity building in the nonprofit, my role actually became morphed into marketing events to make money, to pay me to do the other things that I was supposed to do.
Exactly.
And it was just a cycle.
No, it really is. It really is. It's an unfortunate thing. It's an unfortunate phenomenon, but I think there really is this push-pull that happens in terms of, these career decisions that college graduates are having to make. And a lot of it is driven off of their propensity to actually pay back their student loans after they graduate. And so they're looking for jobs that are going to help them do that. Not to say that, you can't have a competitive salary at nonprofits, because you can. But in terms of just the pure numbers, the private sector, there's just more employment opportunities. And generally speaking, it's a higher salary. And so, all of that just speaks to sort of this financial stability, this perception that if you do go to the private sector, you're going to be a little bit more financially stable. And then you sort of weigh that against, well, am I really going to be passionate about what I'm doing? And sometimes the unfortunate reality is that, that's the trade-off that you make. And so you say, well, I'm not going to be as passionate about what I'm doing, but hell, at least I'm able to pay down my student loans and I won't have to, borrow money from my parents or move back home. So a lot of people are making that decision.
So I really want to dive into the actual social change model, because you guys are doing a lot of really cool things in this space to help address what you're describing as this push-pull between wanting to be able to pay things like rent and food and student loan debt, and also be able to follow some of these positions and really, align with your passion and do the work that brings you alive.
Yeah, totally. And so with Sponsor Change, our service model, it's really about helping college students and graduates, help them explore their passions in a way that is financially rewarding, right? And so we don't really hide the fact that there are some financial benefits to volunteering. I think that's one of the paradigm shifts that we're trying to make, is that, hey, we can actually have an open and honest conversation that there are some financial benefits to volunteering. It sounds, when you hear it, it sounds a little bit like, that's cheapening volunteering and it should be totally altruistic. But if we really dig deep, we understand that programs like AmeriCorps, programs like Peace Corps, there are these embedded financial incentives, right? At the end of your service term, there's the Eli Siegel, award, which you can use to pay down your student loans, or you can use
Which was
proactively.
nice.
Exactly. And if you do Peace Corps, there's sort of, competitive hiring advantages that you receive if you want to apply to a government job. And so there are these benefits, and I think we have to really be honest about these benefits because, had I known as a college graduate that there actually were these sort of financial benefits that could help me, be financially stable after I graduated, I may have decided to go straight into national service, than go work at an investment bank. So it's like, I think we have to be open and honest about, yes, we are attracting the type of individuals who are passionate about specific causes and want to make a change, but we are also offering, these benefits that are real, that are tangible, and that are financial.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's actually been a theme throughout several of the nights. I believe last night, Anna and Portia were really describing that in some cases, particularly nonprofit management, you can actually almost replace a year of service with the graduate degree. That the stuff that you learn on the job is so relevant. And even just the session beforehand, Anna was describing that she learned a lot of her Salesforce skills in AmeriCorps.
Yeah.
It wasn't the AmeriCorps position, but there's so many different ways that you can bring your strengths in and say, this is what I want to learn on a job.
No, that's totally, and we find that to be the case with Sponsor Change. And so we look at Sponsor Change as a pathway to volunteer service. So I think we look at ourselves as trying to create a spark in volunteering. So if you're an individual and maybe volunteering is not something that you have prioritized because of, other obligations, because of just life, right? Through our program, if we're able to sort of catch someone's attention by, the idea of being able to crowdfund student loan payments in exchange for skills-based volunteering, if we're able to, capture that person's attention for a second, maybe we can get them to think about the idea of using their skills to give back through volunteering. And through that process, they then discover that there are these other benefits, like developing their skills, increasing their professional network, their social network. And then, oh, by the way, there's this financial reward, which you pay directly to your student loans. And so it's sort of this whole kind of basket of benefits that come along with volunteering. But it's like, how do we actually create that spark in someone who's not necessarily civically engaged or inclined to do so? So it's interesting. It's been an interesting experiment, actually. So,
yeah. Oh gosh, some days I feel like life is an experiment.
Yeah.
So this model is just so fascinating, and I'm hoping that you can kind of walk us through it a little bit more on the individual level. Mm-hmm. So crowdfunding to pay off student loans, and in return, the individual volunteers and gives back.
Yep.
What are some of the nuances of how that works?
Yeah, so our whole model is helping volunteers who give back, pay back. And so the way we do it is on our website, volunteers and nonprofits can create profiles. And so as a nonprofit, you can create a profile and you can list your mission. You can select from a list of different causes, the top 3 causes that your organization addresses. And then as a nonprofit, you can begin to create projects. And so these are all skills-based projects. And so we make it very clear that the project should be 40 hours or less, or 3 in duration to actually complete. And they're very sort of, pro bono-ish type projects where there's a specific deliverable that is submitted to the nonprofit after the project is completed. So very discrete, narrow scope projects. So these are things like website development, could be a grant writing project, strategic planning, finance, or facilitation. Could be a number of different projects, but all skills based. As a volunteer, I create my profile. I identify which causes that I care about the most, And then I also list the type of skills that I would like to offer. And it's just a traditional matchmaking platform. So it's sort of your eHarmony for volunteering / Kickstarter. It's sort of a hybrid of those two existing platforms that everyone is sort of comfortable with. I think. I don't know if there's any eHarmony.
We had.
Are you okay? Do you do okay?
I am.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
My co-host does though, and one of our guests last night, as he reminded me in the Facebook chat we were doing afterwards, not everyone can be married. But actually, on our opener, or on Monday, we had Alicia from My Edge Match, and she does the same thing, pairing teachers with different positions throughout the country. So it is. I've never actually used it. So, but I do have friends, and I just don't get the, like, how do you know which way to swipe, and what happens if you swipe the wrong way? Like, actually, I was testing out a socially conscious one, Nectar, for a friend, and I was in beta testing, and I logged in, and it had 0 matches for me.
Yeah.
I was like, well, the world is telling me that I should just be happy with my amazing husband. I am very happy, but this is off tangent. Cool. So you have your volunteer, and they create their profile. You have the nonprofit, and then your algorithm matches them.
Correct. And so the other thing, so volunteers can find projects on our website, and then they can actually apply to projects. So not to get too much in the weeds, but every project has to have at least 20% funding. And so each project is eligible to crowdfund up to $1,000. Okay. And so we require that nonprofits at least raise 20% for their project. That way, when a volunteer starts a project, there's some assurity that they're going to at least get $200, 20% of the funding towards their student loans. So that's really the only sort of hurdle, and we're encouraging nonprofits to put skin in the game and really kickstart their projects, right? And we found that nonprofits who put skin in the game, they're a little bit more engaged in the actual project. They manage the projects better, and so we're encouraging nonprofits to really signal to other sponsors that we're serious about this project. So as a sponsor, sponsors can be anyone, could be an individual, could be a business. We've had colleges sponsor. They can come onto our platform. They can see all of the different skills-based projects, and then they can actually chip in as well. So it's definitely a crowdfunding platform, and that's sort of the beauty of the platform, that it really does take every single piece in order for the entire ecosystem to work. So that's really the beauty of it.
Cool. So one of the questions I have, some nonprofits are super tech savvy, and like my co-host Anna, her entire platform's online. It's all virtual. Other nonprofits, God bless them, they're a little bit behind in the times.
Yeah.
What has it been like to, get them up to date? I mean, crowdfunding, that's pretty tech savvy. That's a new term. It's very popular right now. But how do you get them on board with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. To be honest with you, I can't really tell if we're doing how good a job we're doing with that. What I can say is, I think there's a certain level of tech savviness to even be on this platform at this point, because it is such a new and sort of a new platform. It's different. It's we haven't been around for terribly long, so there is some risk, I think, to being an early adopter. So I think we do get sort of a self-selection of these kind of more tech savvy nonprofits.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about that though.
In my day job, I do marketing, and one of my clients is a nonprofit, and they are super tech savvy, but all of their partners are not. And so it comes up in regular dialogue of, getting them to adopt to different technological platforms.
Yeah. And, one of the things that, we hope to do sort of more outreach. At this point, it's been totally grassroots. I think because of the concept, I think we've been able to generate some interesting buzz and some really cool places. I think last time I saw we were in 17 magazine. So
there you go.
Yeah,
you made it once you've been there.
I was like, wow, 17 magazine, and we were in Al Jazeera and all the within 17 magazine. I was like, huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that if this continues to gain traction and we're able to sort of do a little bit more marketing and branding, I think we will kind of try to reach like the traditional nonprofits who may not be as tech savvy, but then really kind of working with that population to kind of get them on board. And because I'm not sure if the message is reaching. I'm not sure how much the message is reaching, the nonprofit sector at this point, to be honest with you.
Well, the longer that you're around, the more success and the more traction, the more quickly that you'll be able to kind of onboard them and say, this is a proven model.
Right. Totally. It's fun. I mean, I think at this point, it's something that, we've had close to 50 volunteers that have gone through the platform. On the other hand, there's sort of the supply and demand. It's such a challenging sort of balance to have because we have a lot of volunteers, right? We have tons of volunteers. There's currently a shortage of actual projects, right? And so it's sort of this balancing that we have to do where in the short term we have to think creatively of like, how do we actually get nonprofits to go on and sign up and create projects? And then at the same time, getting sponsors to be comfortable with this new way of sort of rewarding volunteering. Because I think it's a paradigm shift where it's like, why do volunteers need rewarding? Like what? Student loans? That's a crisis. Like people are having, like what? So there's a lot of that sort of that thinking, I think, that goes into it. And I think over time, we've seen like more and more attention being placed on student loan debt that I think it's becoming more of a table, kind of a kitchen table conversation, right? So yeah.
As well as you're also starting to see people, once they're accepting that there is a problem, start to come to the table with more creative solutions and seeking more creative solutions. So big things on the horizon for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you said you've had about 50 volunteers go through. Can you share a success story with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the success stories is something actually that you touched upon earlier in terms of building the skills and using kind of volunteering to do that. So we had a volunteer, we call them change agents on our platform.
Change agents, so classy.
Yeah. So we had a change agent, and we were able to match her to a project that benefited the city of Pittsburgh. They have a transportation committee, and so they needed a volunteer to help with some facilitation and sort of just general management of this transportation committee. The transportation committee was actually chaired by a guy who was sort of was also a partner at another law firm within Pittsburgh. So it was really cool because the partner who chaired the transportation committee was able to get funds from the law firm to actually sponsor the project that our change agent actually worked at on the transportation committee.
Oh.
And so, so there's kind of three pieces. There's the law firm, who's the corporate sponsor. There's our change agent, and then there's this transportation committee, which actually hosted the project. So we were able to gauge these three stakeholders. Through that volunteer process, the chairperson, the partner at the law firm, was able to sort of work directly with the volunteer and to sort of, kind of evaluate the skills of this volunteer. Long story short, after the project, she did a stand-up job. The work was great. Afterwards, the partner offered her a summer internship at the law firm.
Win.
Win, right? And then after fast forward, after she graduated from law school, the partner, the firm actually hired her full time, and she works there today. So here's an example of this is the one I like to cherry pick, because this is I think this is kind of the thing that we're going for. Is like, hey, these are really like skills based projects that are benefiting the society. You're doing meaningful work. You're able to build up your resume, meet new people in this space, professionally and socially, that can actually benefit you. And so that's just one project that we look at as being sort of our model kind of outcome. And it's not going to happen every time, right? But throughout that process, you're at least going to be building up your skills and hopefully meeting some really really cool people along the way.
The other thing that I think is so cool that you touched on a little bit, but that a private sector law firm came in and invested into a project.
Totally.
I mean, once we get kind of these other organizations starting to invest in these other areas, I mean, that's just going to open doors.
Well, I think there's a huge opportunity here. I think, and we're starting to see it where, you think about the millennial generation, you think about the challenges, what kind of motivates the millennial employee. I think employers are really starting to pay attention to this in terms of how do we attract, the millennials, how do we retain them? One of the things about millennials is, we definitely want to feel like the work that we're doing is making an impact in society. So it's not necessarily just about collecting a check. There is some financial piece of that, obviously, but it's not all about that. And so companies are starting to think creatively about employee volunteering programs. They're also starting to get into moving past offerings just student loan tuition reimbursement to thinking more retroactively and discussing things like student loan repayment. So, the reason why I'm an employer, the reason why I decided to hire you is because you had the requisite skills that we need here at this company, but we understand the financial burden that you've accumulated because you did develop those skills. And so they're starting to think creatively about it. So my prediction is in probably the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing employers coming out offering student loan repayment. And Sponsor Change is certainly trying to help businesses and companies kind of think through what that looks like for their companies. But I do think it's going to be a standard at a lot of bigger firms, Fortune 500 companies. Is we have this student loan repayment benefit. So
cool. Well, lots of incredible things on the horizon. I'm really excited to see how you can kind of engage the private sector into this and say it's not just about the volunteers, it's not just about the nonprofits, but hey, employers, start paying attention because these are people who have on the job skills.
Yeah.
So really incredible.
Exactly. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It looks like our next guest is here. Anna, did I see that? Cool. So Kristen, if you want to call in. Raymar, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Take care.